So let's get into it. What is coming and why, and what is our hope? Well, we read God's plan for redemption in Leviticus 23. And we have the 7 feasts. The first 3 are related to Yeshua's coming, death, burial and resurrection over Passover, unleavened bread and first fruits, or Pesach, Matzot and Bikurim. And then we have 50 days after Pentecost. And Pentecost is prophetic. Yeshua said, "Look unto the fields, they're white unto harvest." Well, I'll put to you that it's not white unto harvest anymore. They were coming towards the end of the harvest. And people are becoming more and more resistant to the gospel, to God's word, to God. And the generations are also becoming more and more rebellious. And the latest generation is perhaps one of the most rebellious that we've ever had. The young people. There's very little hope for the most of them. Because God says that there's such a thing as an evil generation. And evil generations are cut off. And a remnant of the young people make it through. God is with those that fear Him. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. And if young people or older people don't fear the Lord, there's very little hope. We're going to read later that unless God left Israel a very small remnant, they would have been as Sodom and Gomorrah. We're living in such a generation. A generation of young people that don't fear the Lord. And many of them here in America may actually be from the lost tribes. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean a hell of beans. Unless they fear Him, there's no hope. Or very little. So we need to pray for our young people. I'm hoping that there's going to be more that wake up. Because if He regathers Israel and we're all carrying our catheter bags and walking sticks, that's going to be a sad day to repopulate Israel. God can cut off a generation, preserve a remnant of the young people and use them to start again. That's my hope. So I think we're going to enter into a time where this Sodom and Gomorrah generation is going to be cut off. God made the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah as an example of what He's going to do to those that live ungodly. So what did He do to Sodom and Gomorrah? Can anyone tell me? He burned them. Fire came down from heaven and destroyed them. It talks about... I'm going to leave that to later. Leave it as a surprise. So, as I look at the scriptures, when we come to the end of what Pentecost is all about, gathering in the wheat, there's going to be the burning up of the chaff, the burning up of and bundling of the tares to be burnt and the chaff. I think we're coming into a time period where we're going to start seeing that come to pass. The fact that Barack Hussein, insane Obama, was that a slip of the tongue? I'm not sure. The fact that the President of the United States of America has pushed through with the Supreme Court this gay legislation is the death nail on this country, I believe. And the rest of the world is following suit, if they're not already ahead. So our cities are turning into little Sodoms. So it may be one day, if the Russian bear sends his missiles over, it may actually be a judgment of God. But the Lord knows how to preserve the righteous. And this talk is for the remnant of God's people that are trying to listen to Him. I'm trying to let people know that there's trouble coming, but there is a hope. Many people think the next thing that's coming is the Antichrist. I believe that's going to happen, but it may be a little bit further down the track. We may actually see the breakup of this country before that happens. We may see a remnant of the people that are here in this nation head to, of all places, the Middle East. And That's going to be a really big deal. So as I understand it, as we come towards the end of Pentecost, we're going to see the latter rain awakening of Israel. And the moon will turn to blood, and we'll see pillars of smoke in the King James, but in the Hebrew it says palm trees of smoke. And Joel will look at that later. We're going to see a restoration of Israel and Judah. And as I piece the scriptures together, I see that happening before the tribulation. And later we have the tribulation, but Israel is saved. Jacob is saved. It says Jacob's troubles come, but he is saved. We see the woman in the wilderness in Revelation 12, and she can't be touched by the dragon. She's got the 12 stars about her head. There's not just 2 stars. It's not just the house of Judah. It's not 10 stars, the house of Israel. It's all 12 tribes. Back in the land, but in the wilderness. Dragon's cast out of heaven, but he can't touch her. Why can't he touch her? She's obedient to the Torah, and she's filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and she's safe. She's not perhaps where she wants to be. She's in the wilderness, but she's safe. The dragon goes after the remnant of her seed that keep the commandments of God amongst the nations, and they're getting beheaded. But Israel, believing Israel at that stage, is saved. I believe that she's physically in the wilderness nearby Israel, the Judean wilderness or thereabouts. Or maybe across the ditch, across the Jordan in the wilderness there. But in any case, she's safe. So I believe that there's a great deal of hope for God's people. But before there's a physical resurrection or rapture, as the Baptists talk about, I think we've long since left America. I think the big trouble is coming very, very soon. But that may not be the tribulation. Maybe the tribulation. Big trouble. So finally, after Israel's regathered, there's going to be the events in the book of Revelation, as I've just mentioned. And those are what the full feasts are all about. The autumn feasts. Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Tabernacles. So I believe that we're in this period right here, just about to see the palm trees of smoke, and we're about to see our little Sodoms go up in flame. So the hope is to get out of Sodom. There's a time to go into Nineveh with the gospel, and there's a time to get out of Sodom. So I think that's where we're at. Now, in Acts, we're told, in Acts chapter 2, verses 17 to 21, which quotes Joel, chapter 2, 28 to 31, or if you're reading a Jewish Bible, maybe chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. It says, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit." Well, that already happened in Acts chapter 2, but it hasn't completely happened. Not everything that's mentioned in the next few verses has happened, as I'll explain. So what Peter said was happening during Pentecost or Shavuot in Acts chapter 2 has been partly fulfilled. And Yahweh has been moving by His Spirit these past 2,000 years. And here in America we've had something called the Great Awakening and the Second Great Awakening, a great move of His Spirit. And indeed, this awakening to Torah is a move of Yah's Spirit. And Pharaoh doesn't like it because Israel is beginning to awaken. And that means seismic things are coming. Big things are coming. So Joel chapter 2, verses Verse 30. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. Can anyone remember that happening in Acts chapter 2? It's being quoted. It's being quoted in Acts. Check it out. Did that happen? Were the pillars of smoke going up? No. Well, why is he quoting something that didn't happen and saying this is that like that which Joel spoke of? Let's have a look at these pillars of smoke. In Hebrew, V'natati moftim b'shemayim uva'aretz dam v'esh v'tamara ashan. Tamara ashan. In Hebrew, what is that? Young people, wake up, you're going to be seeing it. Tamarot ashan, what does it mean? Palm trees of smoke. So, be careful when you're getting your degree. Don't stay there too long. There'll be a time to finish your degree and get out, because it's going to go bye-bye, the whole thing. If I take this literally, there's a picture of a palm tree, and that little explosion, you may find that difficult to see, but it's very similar in shape. Could it be that the prophet Joel was seeing a mushroom cloud? When God is pouring out His Spirit, at the same time as He's doing that, He's bringing judgment. We hear many Pentecostals talking about how great it's going to be when God pours out His Spirit in the last days. It's going to be glorious. Your sons and daughters prophesying and dreaming dreams. Or did you read the next part of the verse? The context is that this outpouring brings the worst destruction the world's ever seen. If I have wheat in tears and I pour out water on the wheat, it's going to grow into what? What does wheat grow into? It grows into wheat, bows its head down. What do tears grow up when you pour out the Spirit on them? They grow up big and strong and proud. They grow up into tears. Wheat doesn't change into tears, and tears do not change. Darnel doesn't turn into wheat because you pour out the Spirit on it. It just grows into what darnel is. It just turns into that big bad old thing that produces no good fruit. So when God pours out His Spirit in the last days, it actually makes a division between the righteous and the wicked. It doesn't, we're not all singing Kumbaya. So an outpouring and awakening of Israel is going to bring destruction. That's how I understand this. And the moon turning to blood is related to a monthly uncleanness. Israel, related to the moon, the woman standing on the moon with the 12 stars about her head, when the moon is red, it's showing that there's uncleanness in the camp. So this is a time to fear the Lord, if ever there was, and to be glad. We may not be ready for what's coming, but there are many people in this nation that are even less ready. And the Jews were not ready for the Holocaust, but it came anyway. And the rabbis of those days led their congregations to the gas chambers. They took the path of least resistance, and they believed what the government told them. We better not be like that. If we have pastors and churches that just believe whatever the government tells them, come along to our FEMA camps. I don't think we should go there. So this is a time to be awake, to be vigilant. And there's hope. There's hope for those that are awake and vigilant and listening to the Father's voice.